Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello again, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. I'm your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman, and you know how we do it here, so let's just jump right on in. We're talking about a movie I saw this weekend, been waiting for this for a little bit. Doctor Strange, the latest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And my verdict on it? It was awesome. My friend Jerry and I went to go see it, and we both thoroughly enjoyed the movie. And let me give you a little backstory if you're a little unfamiliar with Doctor Strange. He made his first appearance in 1963, another Stan Lee creation. And Stan Lee has a wonderful cameo in this movie. Now, normally on the podcast here, when you hear this will be Sunday, East Coast when we do this, and, you know, be ahead of time a little bit. So hopefully you've had the weekend to watch Doctor Strange. So just in case, we're not doing a spoiler-free episode. Generally, if we don't like the movie, we just go straight into it, and we will say it's non-spoiler free. Now, if it's really spectacular, we'll say spoiler free. I'm actually bending that rule because I really want to talk about the movie. And so if you have not watched Doctor Strange yet, then I'm starting off and saying spoiler alert for this segment of the episode, this first part. So if you have not seen Doctor Strange yet and you do not want it to be ruined or spoiled, then I would strongly suggest that you come back later after you've seen the movie and check out this portion of the podcast episode. And anyway, with that being said, we'll continue on now. Doctor Strange is a wonderful movie. It deals a lot with the mystical, magical realm that is very much for Marvel kind of what Guardians of the Galaxy was, kind of what Deadpool was. They were very big in pushing the limits of what Marvel could do. And basically, you're looking at Guardians of the Galaxy, which they just dropped a teaser trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, was important in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it basically took a group of relatively unknown heroes, Star-Lord, man, and brought this incredible sense of humor to it and showed a different side, a less serious side of the Marvel Universe. And Guardians of the Galaxy brought that element. Now, Deadpool, which is going to be associated more with the X-Men, but still under the Marvel umbrella, broke every kind of rule in the sense that it was the first R-rated, really, superhero movie. Now we go back, I'm not forgetting Blade or Blade 2 and all those movies back in, like, the late 90s. But for this phase 1 through 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it now, Deadpool on the X-Men side of things just pushed the limits of what you can get away with in a superhero movie. And the main thing I'm talking about is the R rating. It is a very good movie. It was a breakout hit, very popular, very good movie. Ryan Reynolds did a wonderful job as Deadpool. He is now as much Deadpool as Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and that leads me into Logan, the trailer that just dropped for the third, well, I guess you would call it, yeah, the third and final. The final is not the third time, but it's the, let's see, you had X-Men Origins of Wolverine, which a lot of people didn't really like that as more comic booky, in the sense that it wasn't as realistic as the Wolverine, and then what we're going to see with Logan, but the old man Logan saga is going to be dealt with here, and Professor X is going to be in it. It's a great trailer. It's very gritty and all that, but we're not talking Logan yet. But my point is, Deadpool was another flagpole movie in the sense that it pushed the boundaries, so it having an R rating is now pretty much green-lighted the fact that Logan, the last time we'll see Hugh Jackman on any screen as Wolverine, will be R-rated. So it is going to have the kind of berserker rage Wolverine that we've got a hint of in X-Men Apocalypse, but we're going to see it just totally full-blown. It's going to be awesome, and I think this is going to be a very strong send-off for Hugh Jackman. And is it 7 or 8 movies? I'd have to actually tally it up, and I'm sorry I haven't done that, of how many appearances he's made as Wolverine, but Ryan Reynolds is as much Deadpool as Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Wolverine, if we go with the younger Wolverine, or if there's, the next phase of essentially the X-Men movies. So that's going to be an interesting transition. But my whole point of all this is saying there are pivotal movies. Doctor Strange is pivotal in the sense that it's pushing the Marvel Cinematic Universe into the mystical arts, into the realm of magic, which you got a little bit of that in Thor. And like I said earlier in this episode, if you've not seen Doctor Strange, I'm about to give a spoiler, so please, if you missed my early warning and you're still listening, I'm about to give away some of the end credit scenes, but so you've been warned, spoiler alert, okay? But as I was saying, Doctor Strange deals with the mystical arts, right? There is an end scene with Thor, and Doctor Strange is talking with Thor about his brother Loki and him, and will they return to their realm, essentially Asgard, when everything is cleared up and the Infinity Stones are dealt with and all that. And it's going to be probably after Infinity War, or we may see Doctor Strange hopefully make an appearance in Thor Ragnarok, which I'm looking forward to. Probably the third and final Thor movie with Chris Hemsworth. We'll see. So, with all that being said, we have that scene with Thor and Doctor Strange. So, and we find out, of course, that Doctor Strange does have one of the Infinity Stones. So, we're all leading up to this big old confrontation all these years. It's been planned out. We're going to see in Infinity Wars and whatever they're going to call the second part of Infinity Wars, the as yet titled second part of Marvel's Infinity Wars, where all of everybody is going to be fighting, basically, is going to be fighting Thanos, and it's going to be something that's been so built up over all these years in all the Marvel movies. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be spectacular. I just can't wait for that. But until then, we still have some other movies coming out in the Marvel Universe. But let's talk Doctor Strange. So, as we're talking about Doctor Strange, his real name is Stephen Vincent Strange, or Doctor Strange. And if you've not seen the movie, or if you have seen the movie, I guess you will realize there's a lot of humor in this movie. I like the fact that it took a lot of things seriously, like astral travel, which is theoretically possible, actually is possible. And there are other mystic arts and things that Doctor Strange deals with in different dimensions, dealing with the antagonist in this movie. So, Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange, as he calls himself, he basically, the story of this, his story is, he is this pretty conceited doctor. He's very sure of himself. He's put all of his beliefs in his ability as a surgeon, and he has this horrific car crash, and his hands, he's not able to operate, and then he has several types of surgeries and experimental surgeries to heal himself. And he comes across this guy as he's searching, and he's looking into Eastern medicine, and he comes across this guy, and he finds out that this guy was once, by talking to a colleague before he, travels to the Far East, and he, to like the Kathmandu area, but he, Doctor Strange, or Stephen Strange at this time, or Doctor Strange, I guess, he talks to this guy, and he's like, you were paralyzed, etc., and but yet you can walk. And he's like, yeah, you were the doctor that I came to, and you wouldn't help me, and now you kind of need my help. And so you find out that this guy, through the movie, learned from the Ancient One, played brilliantly by Tilda Swinton, that how to use to be, that's where he went to Kathmandu, basically, and in that area, and got healed. But you find out later in the film that he used magic on himself. He was selfish to the point she was going to have him as one of the protectors of the realm of Earth, and from the dark forces. And even though he tried all that, this guy was more kind of selfish and thinking about himself. He just wanted to walk and return his life, and that was his choice. So Doctor Strange comes along. He knows a lot of things. There are a lot of guests in this movie that are really well. If you see the movie, if you have not seen the movie, spoiler alert once again, there is a scene where Mordor, who is his friend here, he ends up basically leaving the Ancient One and leaving the side of Doctor Strange, and he kind of goes out on his own. He's not really malevolent in the sense that some of the followers of Dormammu are, but he is trying to rid the world essentially of people that are using magic or dark magic, or whatever they're calling it. And so Doctor Strange, that's one of the end scenes. Doctor Strange is just, this is his origin story, and I think it's going to do well enough at the box office that we're going to see a sequel to it, and that would be good. The effects, most of the budget was probably spent on Benedict Cumberbatch's salary and special effects. Probably more on the special effects. I've never seen a list of so many people in the SFX department for special effects in a movie. It was like incredibly long, because it's a Marvel movie. You stay for the credits. I'm actually in the process of studying to become a production assistant, working on TVs and movies, so I'm in the process of that, and I appreciate more some of the elements that it takes to put a movie together, and going through that process has been a wonderful is a wonderful and joyful experience. I'm learning a lot every day and reinforcing some things that I knew and looking at things a little bit differently. Just kind of like Doctor Strange does, but I mean, he really does it on a very trippy, psychedelic level, using magic. So we're looking at the powers that Doctor Strange has, and he is one of the utmost high-level sorcerers that are out there. And he draws his power from 3 different sources. One is from the powerful mystic entities or objects. They have, like, you might call them talisman, and he draws them from that. He manipulates the universe's magical ambient energy that's there, and he has some psychic abilities in relation to the mystical arts and magic. He can do a lot of things. He has shields that he creates. He can do energy projection and manipulate that energy. He can make like a whip kind of with the energy and different ways. He can do matter like transformation. He can take inanimate objects and like animate them. He has his cape, of course, which protects him in the movie, which is actually kind of funny. He can essentially do teleportation. He has illusion casting abilities also. He can travel, through that teleportation. He kind of takes his finger, if you watch the movie and you see, and he kind of creates a portal which he can step through. He can do thought projection, and one of the big things is astral projection. And that's one of the first things that the Ancient One shows him. And he's like, I don't believe in all your mumbo jumbo, third eye, mystical stuff. And then she basically hits him with her hand and actually pushes his astral form out of his body. And he sees that. And there's some very cool fights. There's one scene where he's been injured real bad. This is after he's established as Doctor Strange in a fight, and his friend, who is a fellow doctor that he kind of shuns early in the movie when he has fallen out with her because, he can't operate anymore with his hands and all this, and he's pretty cruel to her. And later on he realizes he shouldn't have been, and he's sorry for that. Anyway, she's operating on him, and his astral form is fighting with this other dude, and it's actually pretty cool. He can do dimensional travel, and there's a part, time travel, a big thing, and I love time travel, the ideas and concepts of it. And Doctor Strange definitely does that when he's facing Dormammu, and he basically just keeps repeating. It's like Groundhog Day over and over again until they make a deal and he leaves Earth's realm alone. And there's different portals, one to Hong Kong. One to Hong Kong, one to London, and one to New York. And it's very much, you've seen the previews for the movie, and if you've seen it, I saw it in standard definition. I did not get to see it in 3D or IMAX 3D. I got a feeling if you have vertigo or any kind of like motion sickness, that if you saw this movie in IMAX 3D, it might really mess with your head. It might make you really dizzy, or so you might not want to have a hangover or something if you go see it in IMAX 3D. So that's just something to think about. But there's some awesome time travel stuff that happens in here. Doctor Strange can also do mental possession, and he has like a lot of abilities, and they're abilities that haven't even been really explored yet. He has almost an endless amount of abilities related to magic and the mystical arts, as they call it. Sometimes people that he fights that are more science based, like maybe Iron Man or somebody, might be able to. He wouldn't be as good in hand to hand combat, even though he does have some in this movie. But Doctor Strange he's better when he's using his spells and all that. But very, very interesting. He's a martial artist, which is pretty cool. You see a little bit of that in the movie, and he's also a very skilled athlete. So, but and you also know, of course, that he was a surgeon. So even then, he doesn't really operate. It's still a contention about his hands or very bad nerve damage and all that in his hands, but he can use some of his mental energy, his mystical arts to kind of help with that if he has to do like surgery or something. But that was still in the film a little stickler right there. He couldn't quite do what he could do with his hands before, but now he does that. And there's actually one part where Doctor Strange is with the Ancient One, and he's trying to learn to open a portal and to teleport through, essentially. And all these other students are there, and they're doing it fine, and he's just struggling with it. And so she dismisses everyone and has one of her other students there. And that other Dr. Strange says, my hands, they shake. I can't do this. And he's trying to do the portal thing for, one of the first times. And then she calls on the other student, and he moves his arms out of his cloak, and you see that he's missing a hand. Yet he just instantly does the shield and the teleportation wormhole kind of thing. That, so you kind of see that it's all in his mind, and this movie is about letting go of your limitations, and once again, this is all spoiler alert, but the Ancient One is revealed by Morta that she uses dark magic to keep herself alive so long, and he kind of sees her as, she never really told anybody that, so she's not a bad person, but she taps into some of that, because it's basically, this is a story about mortality and versus immortality, but the immortality is not a natural thing, and even Doctor Strange kind of messes with the space-time continuum and does a few things, and that sets his friend into the role of kind of being the bad guy in a future film, because he doesn't like that the Ancient One and Doctor Strange messed with kind of the natural order of things, and instead of just keeping everything in this timeline the way it should be, they kind of messed around with things, and Doctor Strange he's trying to, he's finding his way through his powers and still learning as he goes, but he does an incredible job of defending Earth, of course, and Benedict Cumberbatch he looks the part. He acts it wonderfully. He is a gifted actor, and no doubt that this is going to be another hit for Marvel, which I was a little worried that people might not like it, but I was thoroughly enjoyed. I try not to get my hopes up too high, but is it as good as Civil War? No, but it's just different. It's totally different, but it's very trippy, and it's very, very cool, very awesome. And it's got a lot of different elements in it. Like Ant-Man was another movie I forgot to mention here that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they kind of changed things with Paul Rudd. It added the more element of humor, and you see that in Doctor Strange, and so I like that Marvel's kind of, not so, everything's not end of the world crisis. And even when it is, even in Civil War, Marvel was smart to have some humor in there, some levity. You needed that. And so it's good to see that. There are some affiliations, different groups that Doctor Strange has been in the comics. He's been with the Avengers, the Defenders, the Midnight Suns. Obviously, he was a former follower of the Ancient One, and he's also been in the Order. And like I said, in 1963 is when it was called Strange Tales. That was his first appearance in the comics. And so we see a lot with Doctor Strange, and he's going to fit well into the universe with having one of the Infinity Stones is his, and then we also have the Vision who's got an Infinity Stone, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Thanos takes that Infinity Gauntlet, and he's going to get all those stones, and he's going to warp realities, and it's just going to be something just silly great, and so looking forward to that. But final word on Doctor Strange, should you go see it? Oh, most definitely you should see it, and you will enjoy it. There's a little bit of violence in there, but it's not horrible violence. It's still a Marvel movie. This one's not R-rated, so you could definitely take the kids to see it. They're going to want to see it anyway, so you might as well take them. Anyway, so that's our review of Doctor Strange. Check us out on Geek Homeworld on our Twitter at Geek Homeworld. Follow us and let us know. Give us your feedback on Twitter, and we're always looking to feature people on the show here, and maybe you can be part of the Geek Homeworld. So I thank you once again for listening, and go and see Doctor Strange.
Geek Homeworld Review Preview.
And now for a special bonus segment with me, Cheryl, with no Ed whatsoever. He's tied up in the back of a truck.
Carl!
Lucille says shush. So, okay, I've decided that I'm going to keep watching The Walking Dead. I mean, none of y'all told me that King Ezekiel was so flipping awesome. I mean, forget Deanna and Alexandria. When the apocalypse comes, I'm heading to the kingdom, and that's probably going to be really soon, like maybe this Wednesday after the U.S. presidential election. I don't even care that Ezekiel's really faking it. I mean, that's what makes his success even more believable to me. People want someone they can believe in, and like I've been saying, you don't have to be brutal to be strong. Of course, I'm also interested in this storyline because of Carol's reaction to the kingdom, since it's her character's development that most intrigues me of all the characters on the show. And she barely stops herself from laughing when she sees King Ezekiel, both times actually when she encounters Ezekiel, and even after he confides his secrets in her, she is still not ready to give up her independence and her own determination. So as an introvert myself, I have to say that I think Carol has like the perfect apocalyptic setup. Just a nice little cottage to herself on the edge of a really cool community where, they'll still feed her dinner from time to time and bring the tiger by to say hello and chat for a bit, and then she can just kick him back out. So I think that's pretty good. Of course, another thing with the kingdom is that we do get some more characters, and pretty much the one who stole the show is Jerry, and it was especially funny for us because we usually watch The Walking Dead with a friend who just happens to be named Jerry, and he's only the second member of our crew to actually have a character name for him on the show. Ed, of course, appeared in the first season as Carol's rotten, abusive husband and died by getting attacked by a walker from the forest, so entirely appropriate end for him. It's good to have Jerry now in the crew, and he is a real character. Now, whenever I say goodbye to our Jerry, I just say deuces instead of goodbye. And after long, hard thought, I realized where I recognize Jerry from, because as you all know, I don't read the books, but I knew that I had seen Jerry before, and I think it's because when he was a little boy, they called him Russell, and he was a wilderness boy with a mission to assist the elderly, whether they wanted help or not. And so if we meet a talking dog named Doug, and anyone floats away in a house lifted by balloons, I will know that my theory is correct. Having said all of this, I'm sure that episode 3, which you have probably already seen before you listen to this, I'm sure episode 3 will go right back to the gore and the murderous mayhem that we're used to on The Walking Dead, and during our next episode, you'll likely hear me opining for a return to the kingdom. But I am an expert on princesses after all, and consider that a shameless plug for my blog, The Princess Palace, and you can follow me on Twitter at Palace Princess. Deuces!
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes, see us on YouTube, be part of our Mixler chats. Thank you. See you again on the Geek Homeworld podcast.